Welcome, boys and squirrels, to the Northern Outcast Outdoors podcast, The Outcast, your home for all things hunting, fishing, and ball busting related. Powered by Citizens Hunting Co., A&F Custom Calls, and Out on a Limb Manufacturing.
What is up, boys and squirrels? We are back for season 2, episode 8. I was actually ready for this before we recorded, or is it not episode 8? It's episode 9.
9?
Episode 8 was Tiny Boat.
I
screwed it up.
Episode 8's going to be Kyle.
Perfect start.
Shit, so it's episode...
It's 9.
It's 9. And I already dropped an S-bomb.
An S-bomb?
We're going to use it.
You dropped a bomb.
So...
What are we talking about today?
Today, we are finally... I'm going to call a wrap on the summer, fall, spring fishing season.
Ugh.
However, we're not done. We're going to wrap up season on here begrudgingly just to piss Chuck off.
Yes.
Because he's been a little, as he used the word, curmudgeon, which he misspelled horrendously, I might add.
You misspelled it too, though, which I
Is
thought
there
was
a
pretty
correct-
funny.
Is there a correct
There
spelling?
Did
is.
you think... I didn't
Curmudgeon?
think it was an actual word.
It
I mean, I
was.
figured it was
I
an
never
actual
knew. It was like a
word, but-
dictionary word.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an actual
It's
dictionary
curmudgeon.
word?
Yeah.
It's a real
legit.
thing.
I never knew it.
So Chuck's being a little miser, dude, because it's full blown archery season. We're about
Yeah. It's
a couple.
mid-October, dude.
Yeah, we're rolling up on go time here, but the Wizard committed to the fall bite, and goddamn it, I stuck to my guns on it, and it's been paying off.
You done good, son. You done
It's
good.
paying off, and just a small history lesson, I guess. I mean, the Outcast originally started as a fishing channel, so to speak. So getting back to my roots, this is the first year I've really committed to it in a few years, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I missed it.
It's about time.
Chuck's just on his own world here.
I am putting my phone on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I thought I heard some vibrating.
Well, bringing it way back, Chuck was probably initially the most into the fishing game with his annual kayak tournament with Chasing Tails.
Yes.
Chasing Tails. So go ahead, tell us your piece so you can be done and you can go pout in the corner.
I mean, fishing to me is something that happens after turkey season
Hmm?
and before archery season.
Okay, so
Well, that's-
Right? It's a
cowardice?
filler. It's a filler.
Well, that's the thing though, and that's the
And
problem.
I understand that it's
The
not
spring. The spring
ideal
is
time.
the best time to
Right.
fish, and the fall is the best time to fish. So it's
But it's also the only time to kill turkeys and the
Yes.
only time to kill deer.
and I'm a turkey
is a
head, so
problem.
I sacrifice the spring usually.
Right.
I really do.
See, the problem is I can fish 365 days a year.
Can you, though?
I can.
You won't though,
I legally can, though.
but you won't though.
But I legally could. I can't legally kill deer 365 days a year. I can't legally shoot turkeys all year round.
You really can't catch fish either 365
You haven't
days
caught a
of the year.
fish in 3 months.
I mean, I have a couple videos that I
And
sent
you've
the
been out
group
like
over the
100
last couple
times.
days.
He caught him
that say
last time we were
otherwise.
out. Yeah, I will give him that.
I mean, I don't know. I catch them every time I go out. It's so,
Every time.
It's
huh?
so weird that I keep being
I've
told that like,
been
I'm
out
just
with
not a
you,
good fisherman.
and we both got skunked.
But
so
every single time,
every time we're
it's weird. My photo gallery on my phone just has fish photos every
From the same fish.
other day. It's so somebody's got to be taking them and putting them on my phone because I don't know how they got there.
See, the
I'm
people
definitely not catching
outside of our
anyways.
group of friends, Sibeli's he's dipping his toes in the podcast water. I think this episode might be when the public finally sees his true colors.
You have to. Somebody finally has to draw a line in the sand, and if it needs to be done right now, I will.
I'm glad to see fishing gone. Put it that way.
Well, that's a good thing
it's
is that it's not
though.
gone. So I mean, there's that.
All
I
right,
mean, archery's full blown, but
Yes.
we're wrapping up the season here, and we're going to talk about it because a lot of these adventures didn't really make the YouTube channel, or et cetera, especially with you specifically.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point because I shot 3 deer already and I haven't filmed any of them. If that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, you're a
Great
coward.
content. Great
You're a
content.
coward, and I yell at you every time.
Content provider.
This is the content I create right here. And if you guys haven't checked it out yet on the YouTube channel, we've been messing with some shorts. And the one I posted gets 50,000 views. Just saying, I must be doing something right for the channel.
I mean, that's your
So
first
all those-
contribution. That
Yeah.
is solely your contribution. So
That's unfair.
better
to
late
say.
than never.
There
I
must
guess.
have been a lull of fighting in Ukraine, and they all were on their phones.
That's purely
So I wonder-
unfair. I
wonder
shot a
what this
turkey.
American is doing.
Jeff and I went and we killed a turkey, and that was purely my doing. So,
When was this?
what do you mean last year? That
The
big
year
double
before
beard.
last year.
The vaporized double beard?
Yeah, you did.
That was last year.
You did. You did. Jeff filmed it though.
I know.
So,
But he was still
He
content
also has no
creative.
hearing left, so
yeah, that's also true too.
That's fair
Let's not
enough.
say
Neither
much.
do I.
he gave it up for the vids, for the
Yeah.
views.
What did you place in that Chasing Tails tournament?
Oh man, total. I can't remember. I don't think I top 10.
I was with you
wanna-
when you caught I think your biggest.
Yeah. I want to say, shoot, I'd be throwing. Let's just say between the creators, because that's what it was this year. Because usually we do one big pool, but we changed the platform in which we go through this year. I think I don't want to.
X.
We usually use Tourney X. I
Yeah.
think we use Fishing Chaos.
Oh, you used a different one. I thought you
Yeah,
used the
we used a
Turn X.
different one this year. And it had each individual group. So there was like the creator group, there was your actual kayak division, and then there was a division for boats,
Gotcha.
which was basically anybody that
Yeah.
wanted to get into it. And I think for the creators, I know I didn't beat Chase. I know I didn't beat Adam or Nick.
So you were
but
just
I
off
did
the
beat
podium.
Walt.
You're
I
just
beat
off
Walt.
the podium, is what you're saying?
The important part is I beat Walt
Okay.
and I beat Austin. And I want to say I was in like fourth of the creators, maybe.
What was
Okay.
your biggest fish?
I could
in
be
that?
missing something. It's a great question. I did not have a lot of big fish.
It had to have been at the one at the
Like
pond.
19 inches,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think was the longest fish I had.
Yeah.
And it was the one from the pond.
Wow.
From the
That thing was a murderer.
Yeah. Dude, that was a good fish. That's the one from the short that I posted.
Okay, I got you.
It looks smaller than it is, but that was
It was
dandy.
an awesome angle for me at the shore when I was watching him. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the cast, saw the strike, and I was like, oh, Jack.
Top water
I can
bite
tell, baby!
evening. It was like one of the last cast of the evening.
Yeah, there was only like 15 minutes left.
Yeah, and it just blew up on my buzz bait, which I love, by the way.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like a top water bite. I'll give you that for sure. And I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah, which I think is why I love summer fishing so much out of a kayak is top water, man. I just kill it. Top water, top water, top water.
Especially being able to get into those little back areas like
Oh,
the
yeah.
public land that you took me to, those little lakes.
I don't want to get into that trip.
Yeah, we won't.
Get your knees a little dirty.
We won't talk about that.
I mean, it was just I missed a giant in that pond.
Shit, I watched you miss on camera.
Look,
Is this where we just pour on Chuck right now? Is
I
this-
think a little bit.
the
He
avalanche
deserves it a
just
little
comes-
bit.
dude, that
Comes
bowfin
down.
was a freaking giant, like giant.
I don't think you fully like appreciated what I was telling you whenever I was like kind of hyping it up, like, hey, I'll take you back here, but it's weird and they're wild.
If you'd have seen what I said, I mean, that thing was a foot from the kayak.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating. A foot from the just wah, just through the water like freaking giant carp. And I was like, is that a carp? No, 100% was not a carp. It was a monster boat,
We do
like
need to
3
have
foot
some
bowfin.
dedicated bowfin days for next year.
Yeah, I guess to the people listening to this right now, if you're curious about this, there are videos of this adventure. I decided to go into a giant freaking swamp to target these fish specifically, and it actually worked. And I caught some behemoths, and then I conned Chuck into coming out with me finally, and he like got the full experience. Because I'll be honest with you, float tube adventures this year, very nice. I'm a believer of the float tube for sure.
Yeah. I'm just upset that I can't haul you around as well as Sabelli can haul the
Oh,
kayak
yeah.
around.
Yeah, the umbilical cord was a real thing.
I would like to see his try to haul that thing too, though, because that is like a parachute. You on that float
What
tube.
is the
Although
swamp? The swamp
that
donkey.
last time we got
When
it
we
right
spun
when we
around.
spun it
Yeah.
around,
Yeah, that
The
actually worked.
key,
really
the
nice.
key with him would to be able to just have him turn around, hook somewhere down low by his ass,
and then just kick and
take. No, he don't
slowly
have to
kick.
kick. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I
That thing
started.
turns and burns. That little
Yeah.
Minn Kota.
I started looking for because I mean, where I was fishing in Geneva, it's a literal swamp, and like you got to get in like some pretty gnarly back channels. That honestly, some of them you couldn't really even get a kayak into. Like the float tube was the only option, and I got one on Amazon. It was not an expensive one. It was only like $200, I think. And I took that thing out, specifically out there for that area, and that little thing's badass.
Yeah,
It's a little unnerving having your bare legs in the water with the amount of snapping
can't get
turtles
past
there.
that,
that's the weird part I couldn't do either. I mean, there's some of the ponds with all the scum in the water that I don't even want to touch, like the fish that comes out of the
There's
water.
Too much disease visible
Ugh.
on the surface.
The weird part was out there, The first couple days I was keying in on this back channel because I mean, OnX is like the ultimate tool even for fishing too. I kind of scouted a couple areas and I stayed on this one back channel a couple days in a row, and that's where I was catching the biggest ones. But the main open part of it kind of goes underneath the interstate, and there's like an actual boat launch there, and I wanted to try it. So it's 15 feet deep there, more or less 10 to 15 feet deep, which is like surprisingly deep for that area. But in the open water, I was just kind of kicking along because you got to wear little fins to propel yourself. And I mean, I was just kicking along because I think it was like a good couple 100 yards to get to the cross flow, I guess we'll call it, or whatever. But as I was going, I was just kind of turned around, like looking where I was going, and I wasn't really like paying attention. And I just happened to turn back to look at my feet, and there was a snapping turtle coming up out of the water.
Trailing you from the bottom.
It was trailing me, and it was middle of July, so they're pretty active. And it wasn't coming to get me. I think it just heard me kicking, and maybe that noise like made it sound like another snapping turtle, and it was kind of coming just like up and looking at me, and it was like maybe a foot under the water. You could see it, from a mile away. And I went,
that guy does look like kind of like a snapping.
Yeah, well, I went, holy shit. And I like, I kind of flailed. I was like, whoa, did one of those deals. And it like was like, oh shit, what is this? And it went, whoa. And it like, swam away.
Usually our
but,
response too whenever we're out fishing with you.
But being back in the dank waters, I didn't have like any real run-ins. That was where I had it in the one little patch of open water.
I'm not even, I wouldn't even be worried about the turtle. Literally just the water. Like, think about that back pond we were just talking about, that public land pond, way in the back with all the scum sitting on top of the water.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, the snakes out there, there's
I didn't think about the snake. We saw a snake.
You saw a giant one.
I saw the snake. That's right. You were a little behind.
I was a little behind, and then all of a sudden.
How about the carp that day? Weren't you there the day the carp was flying?
The same spot that we had to actually pull our kayaks over, kind of like an old beaver dam / hill, to get into another pond just over the ridge from this one we had to kind of slow crawl through. Towards the end of the day when we're getting ready to leave, I'm just hearing absolute mayhem at the spot where we pulled over the hill. And I look at Chuck, I go, Chuck, do you hear that, man? It's like, what is that noise? It sounded like just something getting mauled to death. And then we started to slowly get closer, and I'm looking, and there is the biggest carp you've ever seen. And it's doing its best salmon impersonation and trying to jump its way up into this next pond, except it's falling completely short every time and just smashing its head just straight into like these rocks and tree, like just branches everywhere. And so, he was giving it hell though.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a very unique spot there because there's 3 ponds, pretty decent sized ponds that drain one into the next down through from runoff off like the main road up there, which is, it's kind of weird, honestly, but there is like a visible little, I don't know what that is.
Well, there's also, I believe,
spillway
there's like a little creek system that runs through that as well. I think the main feeds.
Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Because when those over, they flow over down in and they'll hit into the creek.
Because that top third one, there's that swamp up above it that kind of catches everything and then filters it down.
Trying to get through that first pond was like being on Legends of the Hidden Temple. Just felt like one of those little races, those little mini boat races. You got to sit down and do these little hop maneuvers and like push with like a paddle on each side to get yourself through all the mud and stuff.
I'm pretty sure there's actually a video on our YouTube of me out there. I caught a couple nice fish there.
Really?
Once upon a time,
I have to check.
It's an older one. It's probably 3 or 4 years.
Dude, there's some giants in that pond.
What did we end up? We caught.
Yeah, because I told you what to use out there, and then you called me. You're like, I lost fish. I had it on the hook. Oh my god, you were right.
We probably each caught like 15 to 20 like small bass, like like maybe 7-8 inches, maybe 12 inches, a mix here and there.
Yeah.
I caught at least 3 that were almost 18 inches. Chuck missed. We won't bring it up anymore. He missed.
And I saw a really nice one too, floated right over top of it. It was laying right up along a log, like in a foot of water.
Oh yeah. Towards the end of the day,
and I floated right over, and I'm like, holy shit, there's one right here. And it was
there were a couple that were definitely on beds that as we were trying to push on some of the shorelines.
Because it was really windy out, too.
Because we were trying to stay tucked in so we didn't get blown around. You could tell the difference between seeing a carp and a bass in that clarity of water because it was semi-clear still back there.
There's a lot of nice grass in there. It does keep it pretty clear in there, honestly.
Yeah, it's definitely clear water. It's just that back part has all like the shit that sits on top. So you're casting like frog over it and you're leaving a trail through it. Yeah.
Which could definitely, you can get into some stuff back there.
Oh, the back one, it's pretty shallow. You could wade through most of that back one for sure.
I've seen some big bass caught out of that. But that's what's fun about it, man. The summer and that bass tournament. If I would never gotten to that, I wouldn't even own a kayak right now. Like in all reality, I wouldn't
It's
even.
a really nice kayak.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I need that back, by the way. I got some spots I found for hunting that I would need to get into.
Well, you let me know. I asked you. This is my last week with it.
I'll just come and pick it up on the way out because it's by your
honestly.
place anyways.
He's going to power wash it for you, too, now that he's power washing the other.
Actually, I will for you. Not
Just
that,
get a little.
I was going to say,
spray.
even after me just using it, it's cleaner than when I got it.
Oh,
It was like
dude,
filled with like hay from your time.
Oh, yeah. It sits over in my carport. And
Yeah, so the
collects
story with
whatever.
that is I've been on the fence about getting into kayak. So Chuck was nice enough to let me borrow his, since his was one of the models I was actually looking at, which I don't know how I feel.
Are you still semi-leaning Bonafide or Old Town?
I think I'm not getting the bona fide. The more
Really?
stuff I watch on it, the more I'm like, eh.
What, is it just a little too narrow?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Old Town's kind of that happy medium.
The Old Town, if like for your size, if you didn't plan on standing up, like, yeah, I mean, even if you stood up, you could definitely still fish in it.
Yeah, I mean, even Chuck's kayak, I tried sort of like getting on my haunches, in like a squatting position, and I was not comfortable. And
I mean, you've seen me stand in it. And
yeah,
fish.
I mean, keep in mind too, I'm also 6'5" and 250, so
What's nice about that, though, is you can get like a wide base. You can get your feet spread
Yeah.
out. And
don't get me wrong. In yours,
You can do it.
I don't feel even like a little bit
Oh, yeah.
unsteady in your, like, there's no doubt that I'm never tipping over in that unless I'm doing something
really stupid.
really, really stupid. But
I forgot I was on the water before at times on that thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just doing stupid shit. And I'm like, oh, what?
But in mine, you could definitely stand up. Like, I can stand up and fish
Yeah.
as long as it's not like crazy windy or like a lot of wake from like a boat coming by.
Yeah.
I can very easily stand up, especially, I mean, once again, even if I drop a power pole on the back of mine.
yeah, the trade-off with Chuck's being wider, which I believe yours is 41 inches wide, which is fucking insane. That's the widest that I've been able to find. It tracks terrible.
It's weird. It's a weird tracking system. I don't know why that is. I don't know if I just don't.
It doesn't have a scudder.
something-
It doesn't have anything, but it has the nice transom on the back, which would be very easy to. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it
just
has
put
the
an
flat,
electric
the
motor
flat
on, no
transom
problem.
on the back. You could put motor on. You could put
yeah.
trolling motor on, which I bought for it. I just need to get the plate.
Get it on there.
I know. Well, apparently there was a store up in Conneaut that used to have New Canoe, and I don't think they're either not there anymore, or they just don't carry New Canoe stuff anymore.
You could just get a piece of metal channel and
I
aluminum
know
channel.
they make them. They're not expensive.
But yeah, I was experimenting with Chuck's kayak. Actually, the most recent video on our YouTube, video, not short, is out of Pymatuming, and it was a very glassy water day. But when I kind of got out on the main lake, I kind of got a little ballsy, and the wind picked up a little bit, and I was kind of doing whirly birds for a second there. But other than that, it's actually, I mean, New Canoe, it's very sturdy. Like, I don't feel like you could break that thing throwing it in and out of the truck. But it's very bare bones at the same time too. There's a lot of tracks, so there's a lot of options, but it's.
Now, put it into perspective here. I bought that kayak as a dual purpose kayak.
Yes, for your needs, you're
Yeah.
more than likely going to have that in a river.
Like, I want that thing
makes
also
sense.
for, I want to haul a deer on the front of it
Yeah,
and paddle it out.
for sure.
And it could easily do that.
Oh my god!
Like, I
without
watched a
doubt.
video where, and it wasn't even that one, it was the Frontier, which was the older model, but the same, basically.
Same size? Like same?
It's about the same
Frontier's
width and
a little
everything.
shorter.
The Frontier.
Yes.
And the guy literally grabbed a deer, grabbed his buck and pulled it as he was standing up in the kayak in the water, pulled the deer from the shore up onto his kayak.
Yeah.
And it was perfectly sturdy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he was standing on a boat.
Yeah.
And the person I'm referencing is Southern Ground Hunting. He does it all the time,
Yeah.
but
My thing is they have their fishing model, using air quotes, the Pursuit,
Yeah.
which I believe is the same price. But even still, the only thing I could save $100 by the Old Town, and it has more bells and whistles, is what I'm getting at for a purely fishing.
yeah,
point of view,
that's kind
kinda
of what
what
I
I'm
was
looking
getting
at.
at.
That's
is
why- I mean,
mine's not a purely
No.
fit. Now there's
No.
railings and there's
There's
things.
a shit ton of rail
They
track.
had what
If
I
you
like
want
too.
to.
Yeah, I
You
can
can get weird.
fully customize
Oh,
mine
yeah.
out like sick, and I'm pretty sure that Catfish has the same one from Rutten River.
Yeah.
and he fully decked his out. He has the same as what I have.
Yeah.
But what's nice is they have those little access panels. You can pop them off and run wire
The
through.
only thing that
Yeah.
doesn't
You don't
make
have to
sense
drill
about
holes.
that is they have the ones in the middle, which makes sense because more than likely your battery's going to be by your seat. But the one in the front is all the way in the front. So like if you wanted to like run your electronics or something, I would like to see maybe access panels in between there somewhere in the front, or give or take. But really, I keep going back and forth whether that's what I want or not. So who knows? My mind's probably going to change like three more times.
Over the winter, yeah.
Like I've thought about putting the stand-up railing on there.
Yeah,
like that
those
little
are nice. The
casting
rail.
Yeah,
so
you
those
can
are nice.
stand up. You could put a couple rods on there or whatever and fish from
those
it.
Are nice.
I don't know.
Mine is dedicated bass fishing.
This fishing stuff is what it is.
Hey, welcome to the fishing podcast.
Well, I mean,
okay.
The day me and him were out, it was not a nice day to be out on the water at all. It rained all morning long. Not hard, but it was enough.
It was annoying.
It was enough to be too much. Like it was like just enough. And it was pretty windy when you got out in the open. But at the same time, he has a spot lock Minn Kota on his,
Absolutely.
and I was tethered to the side of his, so it wasn't a big deal. I didn't have to paddle hardly at all that day.
And what was funny is every once in a while, I'd have him attached, and I'd forget that my motor was set at like a higher speed.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd kick it on, and it would be on like 7 or 8 out of 10. And all of a sudden, I'd just see that little cord between me and Boer just go, ooh, boing. And just Boer would just get disconnected. I'd turn around and see him just look like
rocking,
moving all over the place. I was like, my bad, but I got to start out at a lower speed.
When we got it working though, it was actually legit. I will not lie to you. It was once we kind of got it more figured out. Like when I'd hold onto the back, like we went along just fine.
The best way to do it would be next time is rather than attach side to side, it would just be me backing up to you.
Nuts
and
to
you
butts.
you just attaching because there's a multiple attach points on the back, so you just hook right up to the back, and then I just
and he's got that handle on the front too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it worked. Like we did like some hand holding at some points. We interlocked with our hands just to get that extra little grip on the side. There,
it was really cute.
It was a
Things
nice,
are getting weird.
Yep, it was a very nice
brokeback
Hallmark
bass fishing.
Yeah. Sounds like you guys had a great evening.
It was a Pima Tuning gift card to send out to the family. That's for sure.
Well, other than your tournament you fished in the early summer there, what other highlights did you have this year to mention?
Oh God.
Yeah, this will be quick.
You're a dick.
Don't worry, you're next, mister.
I mean, really not much. Once the tournament ends, dude,
you get back into archery.
And it's not even that. I mean, for a while there, I was going with Dingleberry and Seaburn, and we were fishing from the shore, and I was just like, I was lost. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like I've been purely kayak bass fishing for the last like 3 years. So going back to the shore, I was like lost. I wasn't catching anything. We were going up shitty Westminster, and
that's rough. That's rough riding.
Just
not for me though.
stupidity.
I got some more fish from the other.
Honestly, the next highlight would probably be the bowfin fishing trip. Would be honestly the other highlight outside of the bass fishing.
It looked like you guys had good weather that day.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
I mean, it was
hot.
a million degrees.
Yeah, it was hot.
Yeah, other
it was
than it
really
being
nice. Yeah, but I mean, basically, bass fishing, caught some decent fish. Caught a lot of fish.
Yeah.
A lot of small fish. I mean, everything. I was catching like nonstop 11 inchers. Like I could not break that mark. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, you and me both.
It was constant. And then had a couple good days. So if you guys don't know, like me and Walt from Chasing Tails have been going back and forth every year.
Yeah.
Like 1 year he got me. The second year I kicked the shit out of him.
Oh, that's a little aggressive.
And
Very
then
aggressive.
I think it was and I might be a little bit off here because I think maybe I beat him the first year. He just edged me out the second. He sandbagged me the 1 year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there's
Here
a chuck
we go.
roll. No, there's a chuck roll now in the Chase and Tells that you have to put your fish in within 24 hours.
Wow.
Because he held his for like 3 or 4 nights, and then the last night of the tournament he dropped all of his fish into his.
What?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He legitimately sandbagged me, and so it forced
This is why I
me.
don't fish this thing. You've been trying to get me to fish this thing since you started, and every year I say hell no.
But here's the thing: we're creators in it, so we can't win.
Yeah.
Like it's just for fun against each other, right? So he does that the 1 year, and I go out and I catch my best fish ever still to date, and he ends up still beating me by 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
So then this year I beat him. I think I beat him by not much.
Yeah.
I mean, not much at all. And come on, he's from Florida. He should kick the shit out of me in all reality.
You would think.
You know?
One would think.
But I was pumped that I got to beat him this year. So that's the highlight. And I got to beat Sabelli once this year.
I don't remember
on his own turf. He showed up thinking he was the only one that ever knew about this pond, which
well,
I'd been fishing for like 3 years.
To my defense, I'm going to say that Chuck was in a kayak and I was fishing from shore. And at the particular place that we went to, there's literally only 2 spots that you can fish from shore. bodies have been pulled out of both of the spots that I was
catch
fishing.
my biggest fish that night within reach of you.
I would have needed some.
Bing bong.
I would have needed some grappling firing gun to get my lure.
Oh, it's the wrong button.
Yeah.
I hit it again.
Same one.
No, where is it? Hit it. Hit the wah, wah.
Anyways. Anyways.
So that's the most I got for fishing. After that, I put the rods away, and I've been done.
How did you put those rods away, by the way, again?
I launched them in the back of my truck.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That was the night you didn't catch anything, and I caught a ton. Okay, I'm just trying to go back in my mind
Caught
real quick
2
here.
fish that night.
Well, we got Kevin Van Dam here, fresh off the tournament
Hey,
trail. So
how's it going?
let's hear about
Yeah,
your
my KVD series. You can
Let's
find them at
talk to
Walmart.
Mr. Wednesday Nighter, and let's see how his summer went.
Woo, boy, was it a rough summer.
Yeah.
It was a rough summer.
I mean, you've out of the group fished the most days.
Yes.
For sure, without question.
Yes.
So you'd think he'd be better, right?
Well, that's the issue is that
Bing bong.
Moraine has other
There we go.
things to say. It's tough down that 528 launch over there. I mean, that's where me and my buddy stayed for the majority of the times that we went out to the Wednesday Nighters at Moraine this year.
The Dead Sea.
Towards the end of the season, we basically came to the realization that all the teams that were placing, all the teams that were actually bringing in 5 6-pound largemouth for Moraine, which are
Pretty
freaking
big.
monsters.
It's pretty big for them.
They were all going further up towards the North Shore, whereas the majority of the time we just stayed within 15, maybe 20 minutes of the launch. And all of the 528 area, all those southern spots, it's extremely, extremely weedy, tons of hydrilla. The water clarity is just chocolate milk. And we couldn't get anything going. I mean, literally every Wednesday night, it was either 2 fish or no fish. We could never bring in more than that, and 2 fish it's just not going to get it done. You have it's mandatory on those Wednesday nighters to get 4 fish if you want to be in contention to win. 3 fish will usually get you in that top 6 or 7 spots. Usually,
if they're hogs,
if they're decent, if you can bring in 3 4-pound, 3 3-pounders, 3 maybe 4-pounders, you're looking good. You'll be in the top 5. But bringing in 2 fish that, for total for 5 pounds. Yeah. I mean, we would just go in, basically take some photos, just happy we caught something, and then weigh them just to say we did, and then we'd leave. On nights where there weren't a ton of people there. The first Wednesday nighter, I think they had 56 boats. Then that slowly dissipated over the season where towards the end of the season, you were seeing more 38 boats, maybe 40 boats.
More intelligent people stop fishing.
Well, yeah, all those people.
And I mean, 40 boats, even in a single tournament at that lake, is a lot of boats.
Yeah, I mean, people just love fishing in it. It's just where we were fishing at, because we didn't want to spend the time to run up the lake, because just certain people have honey holes in areas that they know that they can produce in. Me and my buddy we're not at that level yet. This is the first year that my buddy Neil and I actually kind of heavily tried using electronics, and it didn't go so well. I mean, there's so many spots there that are offshore, deeper locations where I'm positive these people are catching them at. I just am not good enough yet to be able to find them and then choose the proper technique for those areas. I mean, I kind of barely understand some deeper water cranking, some, drop shot stuff, a little bit of, I don't even know, just dragging jigs, on some offshore points. But some of these other spots, you can definitely spot them on the electronics. You can see old road beds, old rock pilings, giant areas where you can clearly see that there's a bunch of trees, Christmas trees, stuff like that under the water. It's just trying to figure out what they're biting at that particular time, because the majority of those first couple tournaments on Wednesday nights were 90 degrees, just pure baking in the sun. So between just actual fatigue, just being out there for as long as we were, we just couldn't get dialed in. I mean, honestly, the majority of the bass that we caught, I would say, were towards the end of the evening, and they were all just topwater bites. Just once the bass started actually getting into a bit of a feeding mode, you could go up and down the shores and see where they were breaking and pushing bait, going after actual literal frogs and snakes that you could see kind of near the shoreline in some areas. Those are the ones that we would target late night and get 1 or 2. But it was those couple bites that you need during the slowest, hotter parts of the day that the other guys were getting that we just weren't.
I mean, it's a tough lake to fish on a normal day, let alone you just got off work. You're trying to run out there. It's, whatever the hell time of year in the summer.
Yeah.
And, you're out there, dealing with jagoffs.
Yeah, there's a lot of them there. But I mean, once again, that's the mentality. I know
You think you overthought your approach a little bit, though, in these Wednesday nighters? I mean, I don't know. It seems like you were putting a lot of thinking into it. You had tough, 6 different rods ready to go. It's
tough. There's
nothing produced.
If you can't figure out those, and what I still believe, if you cannot figure out those little bit more of offshore techniques and spots at Moraine, like I said, there was like 56, 57 bass boats. 80% of them are just bank beaters, like how I usually have fished up to this point in my life. And all they're doing is literally going up and down every shoreline, every visible structure that every person fishes all day long. And it's tough to get through and find fish on a tree that, 17 other baits were just thrown to within the last hour and a half.
Oh, the pressure at that lake is astronomical, which is why I don't usually fish that lake after March or April. I just don't fish there.
Yeah, well, once the Wednesday nighters and some of those other there was a couple kayak
ice
tournaments.
fishing there is great, by the way.
Yeah, well, let's leave Seaburn out of this.
The hard water is nice.
Bingo.
There were some actual kayak tournaments out at Moraine this year. I had planned on fishing in them, and then the one or two groups that I looked at, they're for
non-motorized
only. So I was like, well,
that's how a majority of them are.
Unfortunately, my Old Town kayak is basically the Bismarck. Like me trying to actually kayak like a normal human with a paddle that
team rotator cuff.
Yeah, your shoulders are gone.
Yeah. So
I don't have the foot pedals yet. That'll be possibly somewhere down the future, just to pop out the motor and put in the foot pedals instead.
Those foot pedals are pretty badass.
Yeah, they look pretty nice. I mean, once again, just something to look at in the future, but. Yeah, Wednesday night.
So you never thought like, hey, let's just go on a Monday and try to practice or fish some of these deeper spots and learn.
Well, we did. I mean, we did, but it's just to get in that rhythm and that type of fishing, you have to commit to it for a while. So like just going on like a random Monday and looking for some spots. I mean, within a week, the weather could be completely different. The water clarity is going to be complete. Like everything is shot.
Not
and
just
around.
saying like fishing spots, but fishing technique. Practicing technique on deeper water, trying to find them in deeper water on the electronics, and then throwing at them and seeing what works.
The actual techniques, I don't think I could be wrong, they're not too hard. I mean, like cranking, you know the depth that you're looking at, you're throwing out the crankbait past where you're trying to get, and you're pulling the crankbait down to the depth. It's about finding that and making sure that they're there a couple days later whenever the tournament is, because the conditions are just always changing.
So you're saying consistently every single week for the entire year there were 10 people more talented than you at fishing?
Oh, I'd say 80% of that field were more talented than me. Just a bunch of them just got skunked like we did. I mean, we found spots where we could clearly see that there were fish there. I mean, what I'm pretty sure were bass. I mean, once that sizing range, they could have been, stripers, some sort of white bass, something like that. But we definitely found spots where we could see bass. And we actually a couple times caught them, but they weren't keepers. Like how you were saying earlier, you seemed like you couldn't get away from 11-inch bass all year. There were plenty of nights where we caught 5, 6, 7 bass. It just happened to be that 90% of them were 13, 14 inches. And I
couldn't tell you how many days I've gone out there. Like whenever I used to fish them, I have different reasons for never wanting to fish those again, which I will not put on here because Lord only knows who's listening to this.
That's probably good.
But I've been out there. I can tell you right now, I could tell you one day for certain that we got skunked out there, and it was the day that we almost sunk the boat because of the thunderstorm. But it would be nothing for me and Tanner to go out there and bang 12, 13 fish a night and not have a single keeper.
When they're on, you can get into them.
Yeah, I mean, we've crushed them out there, but
you're just stirring up little guys. And that's usually from the weigh-ins. People weren't bringing in extremely long fish. Like the majority of the bass that were being brought in were probably 15 and a half to 16
just
inches.
Barely.
Like they were barely making. And then every once in a while, those bigger slobs, somebody would bring in like, an 18, 19, 20-inch largemouth that was 5.5 pounds.
So what's a keeper?
15 inches.
15 inches.
Minimum. Yeah.
So it has to at least hit 15 inches. And then from there, they actually measure it off of weight, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and then it's a 4-fish maximum.
Gotcha.
So some of these guys you'd see them come in and they'd pull 3, regular looking size bass out of the bag. And then That fourth one, boy, they'd be stretching a little extra to get it out. And you're like, oh my, how did they catch? They had that flown in from like Texas or something overnight, next day delivery.
I think the best me and Tanner did was the one year he actually did catch the lunker the one night we were there, but I believe that was the only fish we caught. And I think we made it in like I think we were like number 12 or 13, which is still like doo-doo. And we caught the biggest fish.
Well, there's not a ton of structure on shoreline at Moraine. I mean, there's some key spots.
Well, there is. It just depends what time of year and the water level.
Well, that's
but
what I'm
at the
saying.
same time, it's such a small lake, it just gets hammered.
Yeah, anything that's visible is getting dominated by people going up and down the
anybody
shore.
that sees a tree
That's-
hanging into
that's
the
what I'm
water
saying.
is
So,
going to be throwing
Now there's
lures
a
at
lot.
it.
There's a lot of spots
minnows.
where there's
Mostly minnows.
nice docks
Yeah.
and stuff like that. There's a couple nice marinas, but those are off limits. So anytime you're coming around there, I mean, those are like that's prime time real estate to find bass under those.
Yeah.
But you just can't fish them. So that's why finding any sort of structure offshore there is key to getting into anything. And a lot of guys that I ended up kind of being friendly with over the course of the summer, just asking them, what they're doing, maybe where they're going, just trying to get little bits of information. I mean, you understand people are either going to lie or only tell you a little bit just so they can keep their secrets. But a couple guys that I talked to that I definitely believe just said, hey man, if you're having some issues, literally find like a 50-yard stretch, maybe a 100-yard stretch where you are pretty confident there's fish in. And he's like, literally just fish there the whole time. He's like, all 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever the evenings were.
Yeah.
He goes, literally just stay there and pick every inch of it apart, go back and forth for the entirety of the 4 or 5 hours. He's like, I do that and I'll usually catch 2 to 3 good ones. And then at some point, I'll decide, okay, that's enough here. And then I'll try to go get one extra one or just try to get a random 1 or 2 bites somewhere else. And I mean, those are the people that I honestly do think that once they've found an area and a technique, they just stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, think about when we talked with Guck. I mean, he even mentioned how these fish will habitually go back to these areas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They drop them back in the water and they swim right back to where they
I
got
got
caught.
Guck's knowledge too late. I needed it earlier in the season.
You did need it earlier, yeah. But I mean, that was a good podcast we had with him as well.
I was actually
He
listening to
shared
that
a
this
lot.
morning a little bit on the way to work because I had a little longer drive today.
The 2 bass that we actually caught on the championship day was basically out of his playbook. I mean, we only went like 200 yards from where we constantly released the fish at
Mm-hmm.
and just fished, just graphed a little bit, found some stumps, some brush pilings, and we literally fished them for like an hour and caught 2 bass like really quick. It was pretty sure that once I caught the first one, it probably fired them up because we ended up catching 1 or 2 small ones, then another keeper, and then a couple small ones. So we had a little area not too far from launch, perfectly legal to fish and everything, and just started hammering.
Interesting.
Guck knows the way.
Of course he does. I
Knows
mean,
the way.
he's
he gets
not,
paid to know the way.
right. It's not where he's at in
Bless
life
his heart.
for not knowing the way.
I'm the small baby creature being pulled around in a pod, and Guck is in the Mandalorian armor defending us. Specifically me.
Anyways, Booer, how about you, bud? You have been the determined fisherman for the fall.
Well, I've been the determined fisherman since the inception of this group, to be completely fair.
Multi-species angler.
Yeah, I mean, the summer was normal summer. I'm kind of spoiled with my brother's house. I go out there, do whatever. But I've been kind of on a mission to cross species off the list. So the bowfin adventure that was referenced earlier, that was the big one for the year. I shut down at my mill off, and I went up there and devoted my 2-week time in July to go really suffer out there, because I'll tell you what, the first day I went out there, it was hot.
Mm-hmm.
It was ridiculously hot, and there's no trees because you're in a freaking swamp, and
you're on the water. Yeah.
I kind of went, full savage and went out in my little tubie and, tried to figure them out. And I will tell you what, it was very different because those little shitheads, you could see them all around. Once I figured out what was going on, they like come up and gulp air. So they like kind of nose up in the water and then just back right back down. And like you just hear like this little in the water, like,
It looked
mouth
like
noise.
you whenever you
The noises that I edit out of every podcast.
Yeah, so this one you want to leave in. But like I thought, I was like, are those frogs just like kind of like piddling around me or something? Like, what's going on? Like, is that like a bug or something? And then like I started like really paying attention when the fog lifted the first day. And I was like, son of a bitch, that's the fish. And it's all around me, 360. Because I mean, the channel I was in was maybe 20 yards across.
Yeah, it wasn't too wide.
Not even, maybe. In some spots, it was like 10 yards.
It's pretty narrow
Yeah.
in spots.
So like I'm in the shit, like for sure. And these fish are just all around you. And I'm like, what are they eating? Like I did some research going into this, obviously, but all the videos you see of guys fishing are North Carolina, Georgia, down south where, you bowfin are pretty prevalent. Like you don't hear that in Western PA, or you hear anybody actually even going after them for that matter. But once I figured out that's what that was, and I was kind of trying to key in on just some flash and some bright, they're, apex predators. Like what did pike hit? Pike hit really bright, really flashy. So I finally switched up to a spinnerbait, and then the one I hooked unconscious, and it was like 10 feet from me because I was kind of losing hope a little bit because I was a few hours in, and it hit like a freaking ton of bricks, and I didn't even I was like getting ready to pull the lure out of the water to cast again, and it like smoked it right there. I'm like, holy shit. So then I'm trying to turn the camera on because I'm like, this might be the only thing. And it spit it out. And I was like laughing because I was like, you're an idiot, Braden. Like, what are you doing? And then I was like, okay, they like the spinnerbait. So switched up to just using that. And then I ended up catching that first decent sized one in the first video. And then he just absolutely bent my shit to complete kingdom come. And then the second one I caught on the same one, I had to bend the wire back on the spinnerbait. He just freaking broke it.
Yeah,
like,
enough of your shit, huh?
Yeah, and I was using a bream colored spinnerbait, and I really didn't pack a whole lot because I kind of just tried to bring a little bit of everything because I was like, I don't really know what they're going to want. Like, So I had some chatterbaits too. I switched to the closest thing I had was a bream colored chatterbait.
Yeah.
They didn't want nothing to do with that. So then I went back to the truck, and then the next day I came back. I came a little more prepared, and I brought some bigger spinnerbaits. I switched to actually like a big ass half ounce with like the heaviest wire I could.
Jeez.
And then I started like really wrangling them at that point once I kind of figured out what they wanted. The other thing too was I switched from braid to fluorocarbon because the water is surprisingly clear there. It's your swamp.
It's just that first top layer, that first half an inch that's just ungodly.
It's clearer than you think. And I mean, they got good eye. I mean, they're an apex predator. So I mean, they got good eyesight. They can
They're
see
turkeys with teeth, is what they are.
Pretty much. Yeah.
They couldn't see my camouflage boat in the water though.
No, I mean you were sitting on top of the rice paddy there,
at a foot away.
But poor Chuck. I finally conned him into coming out. He was actually the one that was like most interested in the fact that it was a bowfin, and he came out with me finally. I remember it was like I think the second to the last day I had off for the week, and I was out all morning, and I'd caught one on a frog. Finally, I was mixing it up, but I was in some real heavy stuff way further east. That was actually the day the snapping turtle that came up to check me out was that day. But I fished there till about like noon. And then I went and got something to eat, dried off a little bit, and then Chuck met me later on, and we went back in the evening, back in the first channel that I was like really hammering him. And we got back there, and he was he was on the struggle bus for a little bit there, and then I finally got cheesed off enough because I was trying to not cast as much because I was like, I want Chuck to catch one. And then I saw him miss like three. I was like, fuck this.
They were hitting like crazy. It just could not set the hook on them to save my life.
What were you using?
The same setup, just a
spinnerbait
spinnerbait with fluorocarbon and. Yeah. I just think there's a lot of play in that fluoro, and being up on the kayak in the water, when I go to set that hook, there's a lot of play in my boat.
Especially
pulling.
where you're angled and where you're looking and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, it's weird that, from his point of view and from being lower to the water, and I don't know why, but I mean, obviously there's less drag when you set the hook. In that floaty tube.
I don't know. The thing is, though, we're throwing moving baits.
The donkey.
I mean, really, you want something with more stretch to really absorb it. Otherwise, they're going to, potentially break the fuck out of your knot or bend your stuff out, or, which you don't want either. But I switched to, after like the first adventure, I changed one of my setups specifically for these fish because I was going out there pretty regularly at that point. So I was throwing 17-pound fluorocarbon, which is
that's heavy duty.
Substantial.
That's heavy, yeah.
Substantial. And I mean, there's not a whole lot of pull. It's not like mono. Mono has some more stretch, which ideally you would want to use for something like that. But I digress.
The amount of stuff that's in the water there, though, that 17 pounds good.
Yeah, I think so. And then going back, Chuck kind of did some Kung Fu Panda shit on a couple of them, and then I got pissed off. I think I casted like twice, and then I landed that absolute freaking unit. That was the biggest one I caught this summer, like by far.
What were the final dimensions on it?
We didn't have anything to measure weigh it,
No.
but it was. I said it in the video. It's like, of course I have nothing to measure these, and I
I
should have.
might have had my scale on me.
Yeah, I mean, it was. As soon as I saw it in the water, I was like, this thing is a million times bigger than the big one I caught the day before or the day prior. And I was like, oh,
How big
man.
comparatively was it to the one that Chuck missed?
Oh my god, no! The one I missed was the big. It would have been
It's an alligator.
It was pretty big, yeah.
Dude, that was an alligator gar. Like the
Yeah.
thing was enormous.
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
It was huge, huge. The head on it, holy freaking! I told you, I thought it was a carp. I was no joke. I thought it was a freaking.
There's
carp.
this trend of kayak misses with you that I'm not.
Oh,
I don't like it,
man.
man. I
I'll
don't like
tell
what
you.
I'm saying.
Well, that's when I had enough, and I started like really fishing. Then at that point, and I caught that
you had
one.
to kick buoy into gear.
We both kind of diddled down the stream, and I was like, dude, just cast, you know. And I'd cast, he would cast, and I'd cast, and it was mostly me fishing it, and he's trying to film a little bit, and I'm like, just fish, like it's not a big deal,
Yeah.
you know. But it's tight for two people to
Yeah,
fish down
it
that.
is.
It's
It
tight.
is.
Especially, were you guys trying to like side by side it, or were you just like
We were on both sides
Yeah,
of the
we were
channel,
staggered.
basically.
That's still tight though
And
for that area.
yeah, you know, we're trying to cast kind of different angles
Yeah.
across and down, you know, the edge of it.
Was it the same spot that we went to? You, me, and Neil.
No, we were way further to the west from where we were that day.
Okay.
So, I mean, probably similar though, right?
Very ish. Yeah, it's a lot wider over there.
Okay.
Where we were?
Yeah,
Oh
Dude,
my
ours was
God.
tight.
I thought it was like minuscule.
Yeah.
the
And we were
distance
there,
from the
and it
shores of the
was
spot we
low.
were in.
Like you could
Yeah.
visibly see the water line was
And
probably
the farther
3 or
you went back, the
tighter
tighter
it got. Yeah,
got.
but that's where the big dogs were back
Yeah.
there.
You could hear them and see them. I mean, they
Really?
were
Were they
just
going nuts?
unreal.
That's what I
coming up
said.
out of the
what time?
water.
What month was it?
July, it's the second week of July. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
They were just
So what you're saying is we
torpedoing
gotta,
out of the
we gotta
water.
schedule some hot days.
Yeah, they didn't
for
like
next
it. I
year.
mean, I tried going back out there that day with you. I went out another day too, and it was
I
just.
wonder why. You think it has something maybe to do with like the oxygen level in the water and them having to get up even further or more often?
Well, I think the day we went, because it was flooded there, I think they were just kind of in the wind a little bit. And Lord knows what got washed away, because I remember it was a brutal thunderstorm the day before we were there. So Lord only knows what happened then. But
Yeah.
the other day I went up there, it was colder. It was overcast. I don't know. It was 30
when
degree
their,
temperature
like
difference.
their mating time is, their
No.
spawn and any of that?
No,
So maybe
but-
that had a part in it.
But I'll
too.
say this, in Pennsylvania, typically they're pretty similar. The muskies are a little earlier than everything else, but for the most part, they're all generally.
We need some
they were
bowfin.
jazzed up that
Bowfin
day.
The
bonanza.
walleye are a little early. The walleye and the muskie are a little earlier in the
Yeah.
spring when it's still pretty cold out. But for the most part, they're all spring, early
Do we plan
summer.
on eating any of these creatures next year?
The Fish and Boat Commission in their online thing, because I tried to research this, and it says to
Tastes like chicken.
yes, immediately release.
Are
So-
you serious?
They don't say that you have to, but they encourage you to put them back because they're not a common fish around here. I mean,
Really?
honestly, that area is kind of a
Like a haven for them.
yeah.
though.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So I don't think it would be a big deal there if we did.
I'd eat one.
I don't know that they have a size.
I was just about
Limit.
to say, are there any limit
That's
like
a good
numbers for 'em?
point.
I don't remember. I don't recall seeing that. I just remember seeing they encourage you to release them.
Yeah, because at
They
that
must
point
taste
they'd have to be-
delicious.
yeah, I mean, I know snakeheads are phenomenal.
Yeah,
Really?
Oh, unreal! It's not like any other fish meat
yeah.
you've ever had.
They look similar, but the difference between the two, the dorsal fin is continuous from the butthole up around on a snakehead, whereas the bowfin it stops and there's a defined tail fin.
Right. Yeah,
And
plus
there's
the scales on the
scales
head
yeah.
and whatnot.
None
But
of this is deterring me from.
but I'm
eating them
thinking
next year.
the meat itself might be similar. I mean,
Yeah.
they're similar fish.
Yeah, the
They're built
coloration is
similar.
very different too. I mean, the snakeheads
Oh,
are a
yeah.
little blacker, brownish, goldish.
Yeah,
you know.
they legitimately have a snake pattern on them.
Yeah,
All right, next
whereas-
year, July bowfin burgers is what I'm hearing right now.
I
Because
like it.
honestly, the bowfin kind of like has the color of like a channel cat or
Bowfin
like a
steaks.
flathead
Yeah,
kind of color.
yeah, exactly.
Like a
Like
catfish
they're,
color.
they're
Filet.
that dirty brownish.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why I thought that one in the water was a carp
yeah,
when I saw it at first.
yeah.
I'm like, dude, that looks like a giant carp.
They're just cool fish. I'm gonna be honest with you. I like
They are cool.
You might have got tipped over if you caught that fish.
It would have.
I would have been in the water
in that
wrestling
video,
that
yeah,
fish.
in the video, he was like 90 degrees. He was at your 3 o'clock.
Oh yeah,
He might have literally just capsized you.
and swimming to my 4 o'clock, and I kid you not, that fish was every bit of 3 feet long. I'm not exaggerating, even the least bit.
Listen,
I mean,
body
think about it,
cams
the
next
ones
year?
you caught were like 30-ish, right?
The big one, it was high 20s.
Right.
High 20s.
And
for
this
sure.
one, I'm telling you, this thing, the head on it. Like,
So you're saying this thing's 40 inches? Is
I mean,
what
if
you're
you
saying?
was
see in the video,
massive.
I mean, it's longer than my forearm. It's
Yeah.
way longer than my forearm, and like I'm not a small dude, so
Right.
that's at least mid to high 20s.
It's a good fish, and this one, I'm telling you, was bigger than any of the ones we caught.
The one I saw the first day, it went like fully airborne at 2 fully grown ducks in the water.
Yeah, probably the same fish.
Granted, it would have never been able to fit it in its mouth, but this thing,
It
like,
would have given it hell.
it would have hurt.
chomped on the head for a while.
Yeah, I mean, they got some sharp little fangs in their little mouths.
Yeah.
I mean, fishing for those kind of, I don't want to say I've been like on the down low with fishing, but like this year I kind of like really, I was like, man, you have really been kind of pussing out on the fishing, and that was like your thing. And I was like, this kind of, the bowfin really reinvigorated me, like going after that.
Rejuvenated the fishing
It was a
soul.
new challenge.
It's a change
it
of
was,
pace.
it was a real challenge, you know.
What I thought was funny is I was getting all the hits on that setup, and then when I switched, because you were talking shit on the frogs, I switched to the frog, and I kept seeing them in the back, like in this.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We're talking basically fishing a puddle at this point. In
They
the
were
back.
like that far back?
Like,
Oh, yeah.
It was
We were
just
in-
like this small puddle area, and you had to go through like all the, which I thought was shallow, but in reality, after I went through it it was not shallow, but there was like
no,
a
it's
bunch of,
deceptively deep in the middle of
Yeah.
this channel. It was like almost 10 feet.
there was some shit there that made it look like you could just get out and step right on it.
Just that much sludge.
Like sludge and build up and
I mean, you were literally sitting on the thickest grass mat you've
Yeah.
ever seen.
You would
Like-
wonder how they would stay under there, though, with like having to come up.
They
to the
have
surface.
those little
they
tunnels
swim
in them
around.
freaking-
Yeah, they go around
Yeah.
and through it. They
Yeah.
have like, you could see the open little channels that work
Yeah,
through
they're
it.
just taken.
And that's and then it opened up into like a puddle area
Okay.
is how I'm going to describe it. But
Yeah.
I finally, and I was casting from like 50 feet away back into this thing.
Yeah.
Just
And I missed
firing
a
them back
hit.
in.
And I was like, oh, first cast.
It's
and I
on.
missed one
Yeah.
like from a one. So I paddled all the way up, just ran my boat into the sludge. And I was like 10 feet from it. I just cast over and literally first cast, I'm reeling through and just boom, blew up my frog.
Wow.
And I mean, I set the hook, finally worked, and it was like complete
Frog
opposite.
blow-ups.
Frogs with the
Oh.
braid on it, and that's,
Yeah.
dude, it was freaking awesome.
Because earlier in the day, I did catch one on the frog.
right,
That was the first one, though, because I threw it. I was trying topwater hard. The very first day I was there, I had the Savage Gear Rat. I'm like, this thing's going to destroy it. They didn't win nothing.
They didn't wanna
to
do
that. And
it.
I'll tell you what, treble hooks there, forget it. Forget
yeah,
it.
no.
It-
You
there's
better
like,
be weedless, or if you're gonna go like in the backpack, you better
Yeah.
be weedless.
oh yeah,
Well,
for
but
sure.
if you're gonna fish those channels, you can definitely throw
Maybe,
spinners
yeah.
and stuff.
yeah,
But still, trebles.
It's got to be single hook.
yeah,
Yep.
But that was really cool. I'm definitely like, that's going to be like my thing next
Well, I mean,
year for sure.
I know
Yeah.
archery's all here and everything, but this is still a decent time to go after some
Oh,
muskies,
without a doubt. I mean,
some of your river pike.
shit, 2
Won't
weeks
see me
ago,
doing
whenever
it.
I was on Pymatuming, dude, Pymatuming is bumping right now.
You're gonna run out of your stupid tag sooner or later, and then we'll force you back into
Nope.
the fishing.
Well, to be fair, too, Pymatuming has had a small craft wind advisory for the last 3 days, and I don't think it's going to lift anytime in the next couple
No,
either.
it's been windier than all hell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
These
it's 10 to
fronts
20
just
mile
keep
an hour.
moving through, and the weather's going up and down. It'll warm up for 3 days into the high 60s, and then boom, drop off, and we're in the 40s.
There's a couple decent shore spots though still at Moraine for muskie and being able
Yeah.
to just throw from shore, like down by the dam, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, even Pymatuming, I know spots that I don't care how windy it is, I can get you in spots, and you're going to catch fish.
Yeah,
And we could kayak and do all the good other
Yeah.
stuff because they're back in off the main lake.
yeah.
You know, I fished a lot of Pymatuming growing up just from camping there for
I mean, that's
20 years.
my favorite lake to fish around here, hands down.
Oh, I love it. Pima's my favorite. I mean, it's always been my favorite. But for bass, dude, give me a small pond and
I mean,
just
and
let
once
me
again,
go.
I just go to Moraine. It's just convenient.
It is.
It's
It
like
is.
20,
I'm
25 minute
knocking
drive.
it. It is what it is. It's just, if I have the choice, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
I'll wait for the ice, and I'll see you there when the ice hits.
Ugh.
Well, Chuck, this
Ugh.
year, what are the top 3 things that you've used that you would say are your top 3 things?
Lore wise?
Anything,
Techniques,
gear wise,
lure.
technique. What's your 3 things this year that you've really?
Man, that's a really good question. I would say first and foremost was swim baits.
Okay.
Swim baits was my
Like paddle
go-to.
tail swim baits, like rubber?
Paddle tail, rubber, swim baits, like number one, caught all the fish on them.
Specific
basically.
brand?
I'm not really brand specific, but I will say those Rage
I turned
kicked
you on to
ass.
them, baby.
Well, I had them.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I bought them. Like I bought this dude's whole setup out a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like and I still had them from his setup.
Yeah.
So I just now I'm out and I need more. But those things, there is not a tougher freaking swim bait out there than those Rages.
For the thinner tailed ones, yes. I
Yeah,
prefer those over Kitex
they
any day of the
crush.
week.
Oh, dude, my
Kitex,
Kitex.
I just bought
Kitex
some
kind of fell off. They were
fly
the
through my Kitex. They barely make it.
They were kind of like a hype beast.
I have two
F-boy.
bags of freshly purchased
Listen,
skinny dippers in the car.
I'm
Skinny
not gonna-
dippers are the
yeah,
shit.
Skinny dippers are nice. I'm not gonna lie to you. I caught a ton of fish on the Kitex, mostly as trailers,
Yeah.
but like just a straight swim bait, dude, they get tore up and they don't last. And I get frustrated changing all the time. So that would be number one. Number two would be probably the chatterbait with the trailer, with a swim bait trailer. And then I always go back to either just straight rubber frog on top or the buzz bait with the frog trailer.
Oh, you love
Hey,
that,
I brought
boy.
it back this year and it worked for me.
It tore
I
'em
caught
up.
some good
It
fish
tore 'em
with
up.
it.
Yeah.
I'd say my better fish caught on that. I mean, it's just a bigger lure. It's got a bigger presentation, and I think it attracts big fish.
You'll have to try the Rage Craw on
Okay.
the buzzbait.
Rage
That's
Craws are-
actually a
nice.
Yeah.
it's a favorite of mine to
They're a
use
good
on
ad.
there.
Yeah, I like the little kicky feet behind it.
Yeah.
I think it does look
Also,
good.
the Rage Craw is a big
Yeah.
Right,
flappy
exactly.
boys.
That's why I think it would work well
Yeah.
because the same thing, like
well, I
just
can
all
tell
that
you,
movement.
I can tell you, it does work good.
It gives you that little extra, more of a side flutter because of
Yeah.
how wide those legs
Yeah.
are.
I mean, I really tried to push the hollow body frogs, and man, I just can't get them. I did catch that. It was a hollow body frog I caught that.
See, the frog I
bowfin on.
struggle with. The frog, I shouldn't say I struggle with. I get frustrated with, and
Yeah.
I don't ever go back
I
to
do a lot better with
With
just
what?
the straight rubber.
it. Just like a scum frog,
Oh, okay.
like a
okay,
spro
okay.
frog.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hollow bodies I struggle with. The regular rubber ones that I can put on with
Yeah.
the double hook. I think that's where it's at,
No, I got you.
and I don't know. I get better hookups anyhow.
Well, Sabelli, let's go to yours.
Oh, my top
Your
three.
top three this
my
year.
top three standouts this year, just from a fun perspective.
I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Well, one, weirdly enough, once again, I'll do some fishing out of Westminster, some of these other local smaller ponds where you'll get that. Some areas just really, really thick buildup of just either topwater hydrilla or just topwater, some sort of scum plankton, something that's really a real thick mat. And I overwhelmingly loved throwing a punch rig this year.
Okay.
Getting a half ounce, even in some spots like out of Westminster where that stuff just grows and then dies and is just a huge thick mat up to like
Which
a
that's
full
something
ounce.
uncommon to hear from fishing from the shore too.
Yeah, and I mean, and
But it works. I've seen
I
it work.
normally don't get a ton of chance to do that, but one of my rod setups that's usually my frog rod, it's like a 7.4 with like 40-pound, 30-pound braid, something I can cast real far and still get a good hooks up on with a frog. I would just swap over to the punch rig, just half ounce weight, some sort of pitching style hook
Mhm.
system, and just, it's just so much fun to just throw it. You literally can't see anything.
Yeah.
You're just going straight down through, and then you're just playing yo-yo for like 2-3 seconds, pulling it up, next spot, because it's real like setting up like a grid pattern, like when you're just trying to dissect the whole area.
Oh yeah.
And you pick a small spot and you go, okay, I'm going to drop one here, 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 and then here, 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 and then just move on. And just sometimes when you go to do that little yo-yo pop and boing, you feel that
Oh yeah.
just enough, and then you're like,
Heavy metal
then it's
time.
it's just blast off. You're like, but at the same time, I'm like, if in the back of your mind, you're going, if I miss this fish, this half ounce weight could kill me. Like it is coming back at me because I'm literally going to try to cartoon bend myself over, like trying to set the hook
Yeah.
on this thing. But that would be number one overall, my kind of favorite this year, kind of used sparingly, but when I did it, I had a blast. Chuck, like what he said, chatterbaits were definitely key this year in a lot of weed line edges, being able to rip them through a lot of spots at Moraine, or even if we were trying to like pick apart some sort of trees in the water, rather than throwing a spinnerbait, we would tie on some sort of, shad colored chatterbait and just try running them parallel to the tree branches and stuff like that. And we had a lot of fun bass bites out there where you can watch a bass come out from underneath a tree and grab it and then try to turn tail and chuck back under the tree as quick as they could.
Yeah.
Oh, it is so much fun with a chatterbait like that. And then third, it was a late season ad, and I enjoyed it only because I never really used this, and it's crankbaits. So did that surprise you?
I was waiting for you to say the Hellraiser.
I thought he was going to say crankbaits.
Well, the Hellraiser, there was a couple standout baits this year.
For the Hellraiser.
As a side note for Z-Man this year,
honorable mention.
The honorable mention. Their addition of their Toad lineup for topwater through like light amounts of like hydrilla and stuff. Nothing beats the kick action and
that little toad. You did really well with that toad.
Are stellar. And then as a quick other side was the Hellraiser, their new release.
Yeah.
But the only issue is that how that back end sits down in the water. Any sort of little bit of topwater debris and you're done. Yeah. So it has to really be fished in open water, which around here, there's not a lot of spots where you're going to find where treble hooks are going to be used on top water. But the third place slot definitely goes to the crankbait. I normally never use a lot of treble hook baits just because I have had to pull them out of me so many times in the past. It sucks so bad to miss a fish, and you watch in slow motion as 6 hooks are just barreling straight at your chest, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I normally don't fish a lot of treble hook baits, but started using our electronics a little bit more, and we ended up going a little bit crankbait heavy. And that championship day over there at Moraine, all the fish I caught, I only caught like 4 fish throughout the day. 2 of my keepers, all of them were caught on crankbaits. 2 of them, decent size.
And you hit the podium that day?
Okay. So, Brewer, what are your 3 favorite baits of the season?
So I'll do mine reverse. Number 3, I would probably throw the underspin and paddle tails. That's like kind of a staple I got away from for a few years there, but I started using a little more around grass.
Non-Kitech related?
Non-Kitech related. I'm a big fan of the Reaction Innovations Skinny Dipper and the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper, actually, I use that in lieu of a frog a lot of times on heavy line.
They just come through the grass so nice.
And you still get that little like with the tail over the, whatever. But the underspin, I typically have been using the Owner 5/0. It's just like the right weight.
Oh, okay. For weight purposes.
For those for the Big Dippers, for sure. If you're throwing a bigger one. Number 2, I would probably put to. I finally think I found the frog I like. I've been using that Dean Rojas bronze eye popping frog.
Okay.
I got a couple of those, and that's actually what I caught that one bowfin on that one day. And I kind of committed to the frog bite a little bit more this year, where it was relevant, and I got a lot of more action on that. I do like the Spro. It's the Dean Rojas Spro bronze eye frog. Jesus, it's too long, but
you do be liking them. Frogs.
Yeah, you do be liking that brown eye, huh?
In the Navy Seal. Navy Seal is the color. It's like his black blue, and then there's I think just the natural green frog, which is actually very similar to the frogs I saw up at that swamp. So that's why I bought that one to use, but then I never threw it up there. But number one, I've always been a bladed baits guy, for sure, over the years. This year I started using the Z-Man sling blade spinner baits, and I am a very big fan of those spinner
crafted
baits.
Nice.
I mean, spinner baits are spinner baits, no doubt. If you're going to spend $8-9 on a spinner bait, they're a good place to put your money.
I'm never worried about the wiring on them, though.
No, they kind of have this like powder coated, almost sandblasted feel to the wire. It's not like a smooth, bright wire. It's actually like kind of got like a little bit of like
texture
brownish to it too. But I've been a big fan of those. The Power Finesse is actually what I've been using out at Pymatuming, and I've been cleaning up out there on that thing for sure.
Well, that last video you posted,
I was catching freaking
slobs.
Yeah, I got keyed in on that bite for sure. But the, I caught that really nice one, the full size one, but the Power Finesse ones have been, they're just that right size where you get that bigger blade. Because on that little bit smaller profile with that bigger blade, you can slow roll that thing, and she just sits like right where you want her in the water column. Like, and those have been really legit. I really have been enjoying those. I've been using the Hackney heavy cover ones up in the swamp. That's actually what I caught that really, really big one on.
The spinnerbaits or his
his spinnerbaits, yeah.
Swim jigs.
No, the spinnerbaits. He has a Hack Attack spinnerbait now too.
Okay.
But big half ounce, just burning that baby
Yeah,
through
yeah.
that heavy shit. They like those big gold blades. That's what I caught.
They
that
move
real
some
nice.
water.
They move some water. So I mean, those are my 3 for the year for sure.
As a quick side
Awesome.
note for frogs, I made a slight change to a lot of the frogs in my arsenal, and I noticed a considerable higher hook set ratio.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing was literally taking, because I buy a lot of those like Booyah, like pad crashers and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Just because the Walmart specials.
Yeah, I like those things. They're not bad.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was I would take the hooks, because it seemed like all of the hooks that came with those frogs were constantly getting stuck in the frog on my hook set. Constantly.
Yeah.
They would always rub into the sides,
Just bend
or
them out
somehow,
a little bit.
but even trying to
Yeah.
bend them though, I still wasn't getting the hook sets that I wanted. So what I ended up doing was figuring out the size for those frogs for the hooks, and then I bought a bunch of the Trocar frog hooks and just replaced them out. But I bought them a size larger than the ones that came with the frogs.
Yeah.
So on their backs, if you were looking at it, the hooks had like an extra, like maybe 1/4 of an inch clearance between the body of the frog and the hook. So I may have seen slightly higher, snag, ratios just because there's that little extra gap in there.
Yeah.
But whenever I was setting the hook on a fish, he's done.
Yeah.
He was getting both of those in the top of his mouth, top of the roof of the mouth, and he just wasn't going anywhere. So just that little tiny bit of a change to some of my frogs, I was really pleased with this year.
Speaking of frogs, we've had Chinese food here sitting at the table for about half an hour now.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. Chuck, you finally lightened up a little bit and actually started enjoying talking about fishing one last time.
Yeah, we still got more time to take you out, so there's plenty of nice weather coming.
I will not fish again until next bass season.
Well, we'll see.
Summer.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, boys and squirrels, I guess we're going to call it on that one. So thanks for stopping by. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe.
Yeah.
You can see a fair majority of the adventures we talked about have been documented on there, especially with the bowfin. So go there, check it out. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. And
hunting content coming soon.
Yeah, there you go.
No.